With the interior completed and the exterior painted and ready to go, there were still a couple of parts that needed some paint in a couple different colors. First of all, the calipers I decided to paint in yellow and to go with the carbon ceramic brake discs. And for the wheels, I had decided originally to go for silver, but then someone commented on one of my Facebook posts with one of these cars they saw on a Cars and Coffee, and it had the same exterior and roughly interior color, but the wheels were painted matte black. So these were later on repainted in matte black. And while we're on the subject of matte black anyway, I figured I'd start masking off the entire body, just leaving all of the rubbers and plastic pieces exposed to then give them a light sanding so that the paint sticks a little better, and also smooth out some small imperfections here and there and paint it all flat black. The wheel wells were also painted flat black at the same time, but the edges were not completely masked off as nice and neatly as it should have been, so easily fixed with a bit of thinners on a cotton swab and removed. The inside of some of the vents needed to be painted black as well. However, masking those sections off would have taken longer than it would to just put some paint on a brush and paint it, and they won't really be seen anyway, so that is good enough in this case. Then on the inside, the rearview mirror and dashboard could be put in place, and I also put the door panels in as well. Now, there aren't really that great of instructions included with this kit, so some parts need to be figured out by yourself. In this case, I now wanted to move on to putting the tub of the interior in, but that didn't fit due to the door panels already being glued in. However, I think the door panels do need to be glued in first before you put the tub in, as otherwise there's not really an easy way to put the door panels back in, as this doesn't fit. So I took the interior out again and then just stuck the door panels to the main tub, added some glue, and put it all in place. I could then put my attention towards all of the clear parts, mainly the glass all around. They are pre-cut and pre-painted. They have a protective foil on the outside still, so that does need to be taken off, but I'm leaving those on as long as possible. The front window was a little bit too small. Now it did fit and there was enough area to glue it in, but the edges were a bit bigger than I wanted them to be, and therefore I had to fill it up with some paint afterward just to hide a bit of the damage that I did by adding all of the glue, as it simply wasn't wide enough to fill up the entire area. Same was for the rear, but that wasn't as bad as the front. I could then also start gluing in all of the grills all around, and you're probably wondering why they are still silver. Well, normally I paint these matte black or whatever color they need to be up front, and then during the installation I casually scrape off a lot of paint on a lot of the edges and don't really have that nice of a finish anyway. So I figured I'd try a different route this time, glue them in place first and then paint them afterward, and the overall finish would look roughly the same as you would if you've done it the other way around, but you don't have to fix anything, so that's a good thing. Not really sure which method I prefer, but both seem to work pretty well. So the brake assembly fully fit together and the wheels were test fitted as well. I could then glue them all in place, and then came to the conclusion that the wheels were way too far inward and looked really off. So another really strange point to this kit, with parts that are simply too small and the wheels that are way too far inward. So I needed to create a spacer. Since the design of those spacers is not really all that complicated, I simply measured the hole that it needs to be fitted in, and I also measured the thickness, turned this all into Tinkercad, an online modeling software, sent it over to my printer, printed out 4 of them, put them in place, glued it all together, and that created the perfect offset with a nice sturdy base for the wheel to glue onto. Like I said, the grills still needed to be painted, so I simply just took out a brush and some Vallejo flat black and went over all of them. Just a thin coat to cover it. It covers really nice and quickly and gives the perfect finish that I was after. The main part of the headlight bucket was painted flat black alongside with all of the other plastic bits and flat black trim pieces that were painted at the beginning of the video, done with the airbrush, but some of the inner pieces still needed additional detailing and also different colors. So those were painted with a brush and some silver paints, and then I applied some glue around the edge to add that photo etch piece, which is supposed to simulate one of these inner trim pieces, and I believe it's also a sort of LED strip as well. Once that was completed, I could move on to the taillights and glue those in place. The glue and paint on the inside of the headlight buckets has cured, so I could put my attention to the lenses. I needed to cut off the sprue, clean that up a bit, sand it around the edges, and with a permanent marker go around the edge to put that black edge on it. Doing it from the inside makes it glossy on the outside and finishes off nice and neatly. And then I could just simply move on to putting on some exhaust tips and various other bits and bobs around to finish it off. One of the most satisfying bits about these Alpha model kits? Peeling off the plastic protective covers. It took me about 20 minutes and a lot of swearing, a bit of black paint and some glue, but then you do get some window wipers out of photo etch, which kind of look good but take up a lot of work, but do finish off the build detail wise. A couple decals still need to be applied to the center locking nuts on the wheels, and then also that center logo with the GT3. And speaking of logos, it was then time to move on to the logos on the rear. Now there are no decals included in the kit for the Porsche or GT3 script on the back. There is a sort of template in which you can put the photo etch pieces, but those photo etch pieces don't fit in there, and it's not meant for a masking template, so I figured I'd go and try it by hand, but then after gluing it on, the first one was upside down, and then the second try it was gone. I did have some metal stickers from Crazy Modeler. These are about 10 to 15 years old at the moment, so I didn't really have high hopes, and turns out that was true and fully correct, as they didn't have any stickiness left. They also didn't really look as good as I kind of wanted them to be in black, but then again, it's better to have something than nothing. But since they didn't stick, I just simply removed them and went for the naked butt without any logos, sadly. Now, if there were some decals later on that I'd find with a black GT3 or Porsche script, I will be adding them, but for now, this is it on this build. I hope you enjoyed this series, and I will be looking forward to seeing you again on the next one.